everyone. A very warm welcome to all of you for the 5th Professor M.V. Mathur Memorial Lecture on New Paradigm in Governance. Professor Mathur was one of the country's leading economists and academician who is widely known for his professional and academic achievements. Professor Mathur was the founder chairman of IDS Jaipur from 1981 to 1987. He was also the Vice Chancellor of University of Rajasthan from 1966 to 68. Professor Mathur was the Padma Bhushan awardee in 1989. Our key speaker for the session is Shri V.S. Srinivas, Secretary to Government of India. The session will be chaired by Professor Alpana Kateja, Vice Chancellor, University of Rajasthan, Jaipur. Professor Kateja has been associated with varied institutes including JNV University and Banaras Hindu University. She has widely published on various aspects of environment, development and health. She has a vast experience of academic administration. We have also with us Professor M.V. Mathur family members accompanying our dignitaries today. Ms. Chandni, granddaughter of Professor Mathur, Ms. Chitraji, his daughter, and Mr. Dinesh, his son-in-law, has joined us through online mode. Dr. Ramesh Arora, Professor Mathur's student. We have also with us Dr. Arvind Mayaram, Chairperson, IDSJ, Professor Sanjay Lodha, Governing Board Member, IDSJ, and all the guests present here. I welcome you all. To begin with the session, I request Shri V. Srinivas, Professor Alpana Kateja, Dr. Arvind Mayaram, Ms. Chandni, Dr. Ramesh Arora, Professor Vinish Kathuria to light the lamp. Thank you, everyone. I would like to request Professor Alpana Kateja to present a token of gratitude to Shri V. Srinivas, sir. I request Professor Vinish Kathuria, Director IDSJ, to present a token of gratitude to Professor Kateja. I request Dr. Motilal Mahamalik, Secretary IDSJ, to present a token of gratitude to Ms. Chandni. I request Dr. Varinder Jain to present a token of gratitude to Dr. Ramesh. Now I request Professor Vinish Kathuria to share insights on Professor M.V. Mathur contribution.
Very good morning to all of you. So on behalf of IDS Jaipur and on behalf of Professor M.V. Mathur's family, I welcome all the people on the dais and those who have come to listen to this memorial lecture. To this audience, academicians and policymakers, Professor Mukut Bihari Mathur need no introduction. His accomplishments and charisma span several decades and continents. He has inspired several generations. Professor Mathur was born on October 10th, 1915 at Alwar. His early education was at Jaipur, where he finished his high schooling. Thereafter, his family shifted to Allahabad due to the transfer of his father. Professor Mathur graduated from the University of Allahabad with BCom in 1935 and MA in Economics in 1937. He stood first in order of merit in the university. Professor Mathur was affiliated with the University of Rajasthan for 20 years, from 1949 to 1968. He served as the head of the Department of Economics and Public Administration, Dean Faculty of Commerce, Dean Faculty of Arts, and then Vice Chancellor from 1966 to 68. He served as the director for 6 years of UNESCO-sponsored Asian Institute of Education Planning and Administration, New Delhi, from 1968 to 1974. He was the director and founder of National Staff College, New Delhi, from 1974 to 1980, which we now know as National Institute of Education Planning and Administration, NIEPA. He was the Director General of NCER, New Delhi, from 1974 to 75. He was appointed senior member of the 4th Pay Commission, Government of India, 1983 to 87. He also worked as a member of various commissions and committees at international level, national level, and state levels. I'll mention few of them. So he was a member of Plantation Inquiry Commission 1954 to 56, First Central Wage Board for Textile Industry 1965 to 56 to 58, Third Finance Commission 1960 to 61, Study Team on Panchayati Raj Finance 1962 to 63, Education Commission 1964 to 66, Telangana Surplus Committee 1969 to 70, and he was member of several of UGC committees. Professor Mathur was a part of 3-member committee whose members were selected by the UN from the list of top-level, world-level educationists to carry out its initiative under UNDP during 1978-79. The committee was given a task to study educational system of 22 countries around the world and develop key recommendations which were presented in a final report delivered to UNDP headquarters in New York. He was the recipient of numerous awards, including Best Teacher, Parikh Memorial, Rajasthan Ratna, Rajasthan University Scroll of Honor for Economics, Public Administration and Education, among others. On 6 September 1987, Professor Mathur was awarded a citation that conferred upon him honorary citizenship by the Governor of Maryland, William Donald Sheffer. This citation recognized his outstanding contribution in helping to foster, nurture, and strengthen the bond of friendship between USA and India as an acclaimed administrator. He was also awarded honorary citizenship by Mayor, City of Baltimore, 1987, and Special Citation Award by the Governor, State of Maryland, July 1989. In 1989, he was conferred Padma Bhushan by the Government of India. The award was given by the then President of India, Honorable R. Venkataraman. He authored several books, including Panchayati Raj in Rajasthan in 1966, Economic Survey of Rajasthan 1967, Fertility Survey of Jaipur 1968, Planning Panchayati Raj and Democracy 1969. Professor Mathur is the founder chairman of IDS Jaipur from 1981 to 87. This is how we are connected with Professor Mathur. He was the country's leading economist and academician, widely recognized for his professional and academic achievements. Professor Mathur is survived by 3 daughters, Alka ji, Chitra ji, and Poonam ji, and several grandchildren. We are fortunate that Professor Mathur's granddaughter, Ms. Chandni, is with us today. We are also fortunate that several of his friends, students, and family members have joined us for this memorial lecture, including Dr. Ramesh Arora. As mark of our respect for Professor Mathur's contribution, IDS Jaipur has already organized 4 memorial lectures. The first lecture was given by Professor Brahm Prakash on October 10th, 2005 on Indian higher education and national development. Second lecture was given by Dr. Ashwini Seth on December 7, 2007. Third lecture was given by Professor Yogesh Atal on education, meeting the challenges of social development on November 12, 2008. Fourth lecture was given by Professor Y.K. Alag on planning the next phase on March 15, 2010. After a long hiatus of exactly 14 years, so today is 16 March, so exactly after 14 years, we are organizing the fifth memorial lecture today. The fifth memorial lecture is by another distinguished scholar, Shri Srinivas, who is the Secretary to Government of India, titled New Paradigm in Governance. This is in hybrid mode. With this, I welcome you again for this important memorial lecture. Welcome again. Thank you very much. Yeah.
Thank you so much, sir. And now I request Professor M.V. Mathur family members and friends to share their memories with us.
Greetings to everyone present today. I and my family want to begin by thanking Dr. Vinesh Kathuria, who through great personal efforts has restarted this event after some years, and IDS for hosting this memorial lecture in honor of Nanaji. I am honored to welcome all of the attendees here today. Being here today reminds me that my grandfather made great contributions to public service, something that I strive for in my career as well. But also, it just reminds me of him. To me, Nanaji was a personal relationship, an erudite, thoughtful, and loving personality who cherished his family and lived with a contentment that I admire to this day. The time I spent in India on visits growing up were always wonderful because they were spent with him. His care in making sure his American grandchildren felt comfortable in a foreign country and the indulgence only a loving grandfather could give made those trips so memorable. And I feel privileged to be able to experience life here now as an adult. His pride in India and his dedication towards its development and people was ever present in his life and actions. And it is through his and countless others' contributions that India is where it is today. My heart is full knowing that this lecture can complement the work and mission of IDS, and I look forward to hearing today's esteemed speaker. Thank you once again, IDS, for arranging this lecture, and to all of you for joining us.
Thank you, ma'am. I request Professor Mathur's daughter and son-in-law if they want to say something about Professor Mathur. I request Professor Mathur's daughter and son-in-law if they want to say something about Professor M.V. Mathur.
She's asking us to say. I have nothing to say. And she said, then move on.
Chitraji, can you hear us?
Tell them. Please move on.
I can hear you. Please move on.
Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. I request Dr. Ramesh Arora ji to say something about Professor M.V. Mathur.
Vice Chancellor, Mr. V. Srinivas, one of my dearest friends and old student too, and Director of IDS, and my dear Bitya. I stayed with her. I've been a family friend, of course, and the transforming civil servant of the country, one of the finest, Mr. Arvind Mayaram, the chairperson of IDS, and all the friends. Those were the days when I was a student of Department of Economics and Public Administration, of which Professor M.V. Mathur was the founder head. He combined economics and public administration together. And his basic idea was that you can develop a country through two things, And the rigorous thinking and effective coordination. Rigorous thinking comes through economists and effective coordination through public administrators. He would like to be known as an adventurer of ideas. In any organization that he became a part of, he gave creative ideas, innovative ideas. Mr. V. Srinivas will be happy to learn that the Rajasthan Administrative Reforms Committee, which was one of the first committees of this country at the state level in 1962, of which Mr. Harishchandra Mathur was a chairperson, Professor M.D. Mathur was a member. And that committee gave the idea of ombudsman, which is now Lokpal, of course. That committee gave the idea of state planning boards. A number of good ideas were given by the committee, and I tell you honestly that many of these ideas certainly had their rootings in the discussions which took place with Professor M.D. Mathur. And whether member of Plantation Inquiry Commission or Third Finance Commission or Fourth Pay Commission or Education Commission or Committee for the Civil Servants Recruitment, he was a person who used to listen to everyone and then give something new, because he was very much aware of what's happening abroad and wanted to transplant some of the ideas which were very useful and applied in foreign countries. One of the ideas he had was catch them young, the Australian system, that you really catch civil servants in the first phase of their education, after 12th maybe. And some of these ideas were, of course, incorporated in the Administrative Reforms Commission of India, second Administrative Reforms Commission. But I'm talking to you about what a great teacher he was. Full of vibration, full of vibrance, activity. There was a general seminar every Thursday in our department, and everyone was present, all students, all teachers, research scholars, and we used to discuss a number of good ideas every week. And every student had a duty to present the paper. I also did one, of course, rather two. And there were tutorial system, regular classes, best of the teachers, finest of the visiting faculty, inviting the best of the people as faculty members, regular faculty members in our department. Dr. Raja Chillaiya, Yogendar Alag, and Dr. Raj Krishna, a few of the finest minds were members of the faculty of our department. We have been direct students of these people. And the syllabi were up to date, the state of the art syllabi. What a student would learn in Harvard or Columbia was being taught in Department of Economics and Public Administration. And when he started public administration as a subject, and the type of program that we really had was astounding. So astounding that when I went to USA for my doctorate, I found that when I took master's degree, the books that were being recommended, I was aware of them, primarily because of my roots in the department as a student. And that was the farsightedness of Professor M.D. Mathur. And he was a man who was humane, kind, compassionate, empathetic, most motivating. And attending his classes, he used to teach planning in the class. And I remember those sessions when he would make us think. He would interact with students and ask them, what is your idea? Think new, think fresh, be innovative, out of the box thinking. And he was so supportive and encouraging, so loving and affectionate, so supportive, and all the time making his students feel they were among the best, and they can be among the best. It's so rare to find people like him today. Even in those days, it was rare to find people like him. He was an island of excellence. Somebody who was unique, absolutely incomparable. I'm very emotional. I pay my tribute to him. I brought out a volume in his honor, Festive to P.C. Mathur. He was my co-author also in a book. And then we also brought out a memorial volume later on, which Dinesh Kumarji edited. Oh, he was a wonderful man. And remembering him all gives you tremendous energy and vitality. Thank you, sir.
Thank you so much, sir. Now I request Professor Alpana Kateja, Vice Chancellor, University of Rajasthan, Jaipur, to kindly introduce our speaker.
Shri Srinivas ji, Secretary to Government of India and keynote speaker in today's program. Professor Vinesh Khaturiya ji, Director IDS, family members of Professor M.B. Mathur, Ms. Chandni Kumar, granddaughter of Professor Mathur, Professor Ramesh Arora ji, student of Professor M.B. Mathur, Dr. Arvind Mayaram ji, Chairperson IDS, Professor Sanjay Lodha ji, colleagues, friends, everyone who have joined us physically or on online mode. Warm greetings of the day. It's a great day today. We all have gathered here to commemorate the memory of a legend, a great academician, a great administrator, institution builder, and above all, a great human being. I'm quite overwhelmed, honestly, to talk about Professor M.B. Mathur, whose legacy continues to resonate in the hearts and minds of all stakeholders of University of Rajasthan. He left lasting contribution to the University of Rajasthan. The most beautiful things in life are not things, they are moments and memories that we keep close to our heart forever. I have heard a number of stories about Professor Mathur, a man of integrity, mind changer, hard nut, who demonstrated unwavering belief, collective accountability, openness to critique, steadfast adherence to principles, and institutional prioritization. To commemorate the memory of such a legend, it's befitting to have Shri Srinivas ji, who himself is a trendsetter for good governance. Shri V. Srinivas ji serves as Secretary to Government of India, Department of Administrative Reforms and Public Grievances, and Department of Pension and Pensioners' Welfare in the Ministry of Personnel, Public Grievances and Pensions since December 2021. He holds additional charge of Director General of National Center for Good Governance, NCGG. He represents India on the Council of Administration of the International Institute of Administrative Sciences, Brussels, since 2018. He has served as Special Secretary, Additional Secretary, Joint Secretary, and Deputy Secretary in Government of India in the years 2000 to 2021 in the Ministry of Personnel, Public Grievances and Pensions, Health and Family Welfare, Culture, Textile, Finance and Company Affairs, External Affairs, and Petroleum and Natural Gas. Shri V. Srinivas ji served as Chairman, Board of Revenue for Rajasthan with additional charge of Chairman Rajasthan Tax Board in 2017-2018. He has served as Private Secretary to External Affairs Minister and as Private Secretary to Finance Minister in the year 2001 to 2003 and Advisor to Executive Director India in the IMF in Washington, D.C. from 2003 to 2006 and represented India on the International Cotton Advisory Committee from 2010 to 2013. In Government of Rajasthan, he has served as Secretary Planning and Finance Budget, Family Welfare and Mission Director, National Rural Health Mission and Science and Technology. He has also served as District Collector, Jodhpur and Pali. He is a recipient of Digital India Award 2020 for implementing e-office in the Central Secretariat, the Kaya Kalp Clean Hospital Awards for the years 2015 and 2016 for Clean and Green AIMS campaign, the AIMS Leadership Excellence Award for 2017. He is a recipient of 2 Indian Council of World Affairs Fellowships for his books, India's Relation with International Monetary Fund, 1991 to 2016, and G20 at 2023, the roadmap to Indian presidency. He has also authored his third book, The March to New India, Governance Transformed, 2014 to 2019, which was published in 2019. He is a junior national badminton champion, 1984, and an All India Universities badminton champion, 1988. He has authored 3 books, published over 250 papers, and delivered over 100 orations. He is a senior administrator, a respected academician, and an institution builder par excellence. There cannot be any better person than Shri Srinivas ji to give a memorial lecture in honor of Professor M.V. Mathur, another institution builder. So with all respect, I invite you, sir, to deliver the oration. Thank you.
Honorable Chairperson, Professor Alpana Kateja ji, the Vice Chancellor of University of Rajasthan. Dr. Arvind Mayram ji, the reason why many of us were inspired to pursue a career in governance. Thank you for being here, sir. Professor Ramesh Arora, whom I have known from my first day when I came to Rajasthan in 1989. Thank you for inviting me for this oration today. Family members of late Professor M.B. Mathur ji, it's indeed a great honor to share and a few words on this occasion and deliver the 5th memorial lecture in his honor. Director, IDS, Professor Kathuria, thank you for inviting me. We've been working out the dates and I'm glad I could come here. Distinguished colleagues, a lot of officers who have served with me in the 90s, Mr. Nag, Mr. Dayal Singh are all here today. Officers who were with me in the tax board are also here. My colleagues who have joined me from Government of India, Mrs. Priska Mathew, Dr. Ghazala, our young colleagues who have helped me curate this talk. My first memories of coming to Institute of Development Studies, Jaipur, go back to 1990s, and it was an institution where academia flourished. It was an institution where symposia were held, conferences were held, workshops. It was dominated by a buzz of academic activity, and each of this was possible because the foundations of Professor M.V. Mathur were so strong, and the great buzz with regard to the Sustainable Development Goals, with regard to right to transparency, with regard to numerous workshops, Panchayati Raj. I recall sitting in with NGOs, with academics, with policymakers in this institution over the years, and I have very fond memories of my previous visits here. So today is a very memorable occasion when Professor Arora insisted that I should come here and participate in this lecture. I came to Rajasthan as a 22-year-old, first job in the Indian Administrative Service, and I passed out the civil service examination with public administration as one of my optionals. And I was introduced to the subject of Weberian model of bureaucracy way back in 1980s. And rational decision making was what was taught to us. Professor Arora used to teach us Simon's model of decision making, and rationality of decision making was something. Adherence to rule of law was always taught. Hierarchy should be maintained, span of control. As I grew over the years, I did happen to read one of the publications I recall, and McDonaldization of society. And it spoke about how the McDonald's French fries look the same across the world, Whether you eat it in Jaipur or whether you eat it in Washington, D.C., the French fries taste the same, exactly the same. It was an area of super specialization, and McGregor spoke of irrationality of rationality. And it seemed to be that one size fits all approach was being pushed. As I grew further in service, I realized that an all-pervasive push for technology would make an enormous change into governance. And 5.5 years ago, I was appointed in the Department of Administrative Reforms to look at an all-pervasive push for adoption of technology in governance. I had experience of transforming two institutions before I went into the Department of Administrative Reforms. One was the All India Institute of Medical Sciences, where the Digital India was launched, and the footprints of an online patient registration system, which now has emanated into the National Health Authority, were taken up. And thereafter, with the Board of Revenue in Rajasthan, where I found the tremendous benefits for the massive push for technology can bring about. As I worked in the Central Secretariat in my third stint in Government of India, I realized that digitization of the Central Secretariat was a massive felt need. So we took up two major programs. One was the digitization of office files in the Secretariat, the e-office program, and the second was simplification of the grievance redressal systems through strengthening of the CP Grams portal. One of them fetched us the Digital India Award of 2020 because the Central Secretariat transformed itself. And the second was very significant in terms of how grievance redressal was transformed. So I'll share with you the experiences over the last 5.5 years of working in the governance space of India and the remarkable changes that one can witness with an all-pervasive push for technology. I shared a copy of this lecture with several of colleagues. In fact, several senior colleagues, Mr. Arun Kumar is from the 1963 batch. I did also share it with one of our former chief secretaries, Mr. Srinivas, and they said the technology push is very fine, but there is nothing that beats the regular, downright hardworking civil servant, night halls, physical presence. These are also very important. Also, in terms of the internet rich and the internet poor, and people who adopt technology and people who face challenges in adoption of technology, there should be greater inclusivity. That said, my last decade of working on technological reform and digital transformation of institutions has convinced me that the way forward represents an all-pervasive adoption of technology with adequate cybersecurity measures. And this is what I will share with you today as to how ease of living can be brought about with technology. Next, please. How do I operate the PPT? You have us. You're operating? Okay, go to the next slide. So in this lecture, I would of course be covering the major administrative reforms, which include recognizing meritocracy. I would also be dealing with effective redressal of public grievances, the major secretariat reforms, benchmarking of governance, that is development of indices. Everybody, in God we trust, everybody trusts in God, but everybody brings data to the table. 21st century governance models are highly data-driven governance models. Replication, dissemination, documentation of good governance practices, as also conferment of how do you spread e-services. These are areas that I will deal with. Next, please. One of the policy maxims that government has been speaking about is maximum governance, minimum government. What exactly does this policy maxim mean? the way I would like to interpret this is to bring citizens and government closer using technology. And the best manifestation of a maximum government minimum governance policy is a digitally empowered citizen and a digitally transformed institution. So you have across India states which have tried to pursue adoption of e-services. We have across the nation central ministries pursuing technology practices, and you have across the globe, be it from Estonia to Australia, be it from Singapore to Washington, DC, everybody is going digital across the world. I would also brief you on redressal of public grievances, this major platform that is run, the CP Grams platform. Next, please. The second big area is Vision India 2047. Vision India 2047 is an all-pervasive Government of India initiative that is being taken up across ministries and departments. Young civil servants have been put together. In fact, the DRPG has curated 40 young collectors below the age of 40, along with 40 assistant professors, not senior people, 40 assistant professors, 40 seed stage startups who can sit together and ideate on 10 big thematic areas that will be taken up in the 21st century by 2047. Next, please. You have e-services and e-services. There are many municipal bodies which provide apps. For example, NDMC has an app, NDMC 311 app. Indore has several apps, so Indore 311 app. It's important to assess how e-services perform, and you may have a streetlight problem. Nag was telling me he has a problem with water supply. You file a complaint on an app, I hope it is redressed. If it is not redressed on an app, it's important to benchmark the performance of that e-service that is being provided. So the National E-Services Delivery Assessment assesses e-services that are being provided across the country and benchmarks them against 4 major criteria. That is accessibility and content availability, particularly web portals which are updated, not updated, citizen services being provided. The second one is with regard to status and request tracking. You put a request, how is it tracked? The third is with regard to content, the third is with regard to data security and privacy and ease of use. This is the fourth one. So these are the 4 areas on which we assess e-services. So these are biannual publications, and I was associated with the last 3 publications over the 6 years. Next, please. The objective was to increase the number of e-services, and we started with 56 mandatory e-services. 56 mandatory e-services covering revenue, police, social welfare, public works department, PHED. These actually accounted to a majority of the e-services that states provide. And we identified G2B and G2C services, and the objective was to ensure faceless and suo motu entitlement-based delivery of services. The focus was that all services should be provided on one portal, unified portals, not have multiple portals, everybody creating a separate portal. Have a unified portal where services are provided, create a pay portal along with it, and disseminate best practices. What are the emerging technologies that are coming in? What are the AI practices that are coming in? And disseminate them. Yesterday we had a webinar on emerging technologies, on use of drones as also CCTV cameras in police surveillance in Gujarat. So as to how individual policemen across the state of Gujarat were networked to identify and reduce crime. Next, please. This is how the mandatory e-services in 5 departments, 56 services have grown from 2019 to 2023. When we first formulated NASDA, we found 48% of these services were provided. Today, 76% of these services are provided. Many states have moved to almost 56 out of 56. Rajasthan is one of those states which provides all 56 services online and provides very strong platforms. Jan Sampark is a very strong portal that has been developed. You of course have the very strong performers which were digitally advanced states like Tamil Nadu, Andhra, Telangana, Karnataka, where a lot of software companies were operating for a number of years. But you find even in states, union territory like Jammu and Kashmir, the digital footprint is quite astounding. And I'll show you in the next slide. Next, please. This is how the total e-services that are being provided across India, this is the heat map of how e-services are moving across every month. And you would find Jammu and Kashmir at the top. Please come, please sit down. So you would find Jammu and Kashmir right at the top. 1,117 e-services being provided. And after that is Tamil Nadu with 1,101 e-services. You'd find 6 months ago, J&K was providing 418 services. When I visited J&K in 2019 August, 5 days after Article 370 was abrogated, J&K was having just 15 e-services. The scaling up of an e-governance model can be extremely rapid. We did the Katra conference in 2022, and at that time, they had 225 services. The scaling up in an e-governance model, particularly when there is a massive push, can be enormously fast, and it can be enormously beneficial to citizens. You can see Rajasthan, which is providing currently 549 e-services. We used to have 248 in April 2023. So there has been a doubling in terms of the number of e-services in Rajasthan also. But you would not find all states of India are not performing at the same level. There are states up to Mizoram which are providing over 100 e-services. We've tried to facilitate interactions between Manipur and Jammu Kashmir so that how do you disseminate knowledge? How can portals be created? So dissemination of knowledge is important, and an interaction, a 3-day interaction between government of Manipur officials and J&K was facilitated. Perhaps in another 2 months, government of Manipur would be reaching over 300 e-services. Next, please. We highlight best practices. Every month a document is prepared highlighting the portals and the quality of the integrated service portals and platforms. Next, please. These are some of the portals that have been developed across India. Every state has tried to go digital. You look at the e-Unnat portal of Jammu and Kashmir, the Odisha One of Orissa, the Me Seva of Telangana, the Antyodaya Saral. This was one of the pioneering portals. Parivar Pehchan Patra was created for every citizen, every family, and Antyodaya Saral provides a gamut of services online. Seva Sindhu of Karnataka is of course a PM awardee and was one of the first states to cross 800 e-services. And they also had a right to services first, and it was implemented on a digital platform. So Karnataka's Seva Sindhu portal indeed is a standout performer. Please go ahead. You also have smaller states adopting. Apni Sarkar of Uttarakhand has done remarkably well. Then you have AP Seva, then the e-proposal system of Meghalaya. They also have a WhatsApp grievance redressal system that has been taken up. The e-Sevai of Tamil Nadu. And I was in Guwahati a few days back, and I visited the Seva Setu portal of government of Assam, which was again a rapid increase in terms of number of services. Assam crossed over 500 e-services. Next, please. The major push for e-services comes from the right to service commissions, and the right to service commissioners have been ensuring that more and more services are provided online. More than 22 states have Right to Services Act. There are 10 states where the Right to Services commissioners are currently working, former chief secretaries largely, former DGPs in some states who are serving as Right to Service commissioners and who are responsible. And every month when we meet them, the discussions focus on, let us take some more e-services taking up. Next, please. There is a massive private sector push for adoption of digital technology, be it adoption of artificial intelligence, emerging technologies, machine learning. There are several key players who are willing to work with government on ensuring that technology is adopted. And we've had several workshops with technology providers as also with knowledge partners in ensuring that a 21st century governance model which reaches every family of India through use of technology is possible. Next, please. The roadmap forward in terms of India's e-services model looks like promoting the integrated service delivery, data-centric e-government, a policy framework for adoption of new age technologies, service affordability, e-literacy, and a mobile-first approach. And cyber resilience is extremely important because portals which are not adequately protected with multi-level authentications can be prone to hacking. Next, please. The second big subject, in fact, is the CPGRAMs, effective redressal of public grievances. And having redressed over 1.5 crore grievances over the last 5 years, I've seen how technology can bring citizens and government closer if there is a strong, effective platform. The Central Secretariat had more than 10 lakh pending cases, pending grievances, which we were struggling to redress. The objective was to bring down the number of grievances in the Central Secretariat to 50,000 and those grievances which pertain to states to about 150,000. We could achieve this because we created a strong platform, and as the data shows, the CPGRAM portal, which is the Right to Prime Minister portal, receives about 120,000 grievances from citizens on a monthly basis pertaining to central ministries, and it receives about 70,000 cases pertaining to states. Next, please. The first objective was to ensure that the grievance redressal numbers increased. While the cases were being received, effective redressal, quality redressal necessitated deployment of grievance officers. Next, please. One of the most important steps of Indian democracy is the voice of the citizen must be heard. And this was the 10-step reform for redressal of public grievances that was taken up. And as you can see, many of these steps involved adoption of latest technologies. Technology enhancements, the entire portal source codes had to be rewritten, universalization of grievances. In fact, the idea came from a probationer that in his presentation that we didn't have adequate number of grievance officers to handle this many grievances. So this led to plotting more grievance officers on the portal, and today we have 107,000 grievance officers mapped on the CPGRAM portal. Language translation, the portal was largely being used by English speakers, also by Hindi. Today, every language it is available. Grievance redressal quality needed assessment, and the quality was assessed through an index. I'll share with you how the quality of redressal is addressed. And every citizen whose grievance is filed is called through a feedback call center. So more than 100,000 calls are made, and the satisfaction level of the citizen is measured. One Nation, One Portal, there are grievance portals that states are running, there are grievance portals central ministries are running. Each one of them is integrated through web APIs with the CPGRAMs. 5.1 lakh common service centers have been integrated with the CPGRAMs so that the internet poor can also access grievances. 107,000 officers, capacity building programs, a scheme had to be devised, budgets had to be provided, The Sevottam scheme was rewritten. And as I said, to handle big data, when you handle 30 lakh, 40 lakh cases, 40 lakh citizen data needed to be categorized into policy, processes, people, and then identified. So 12,000 categories in which citizens file a grievance, we had to set up a large data strategy unit which was based upon use of artificial intelligence to ensure that the big data could be handled. Next, please. The first step was to universalize CPgrams. And I recall going to Secretary Post, Peskaji was under secretary with me, and we went and he said, no, our system is working fine. The system is simply reluctant to adopt any change. And it requires consensus building, takes a huge amount of effort, huge amount of time. And by the time we could get 84 ministries and departments to map their last mile grievance officers, it took us 2 years. And huge number of times we went to Chairman Railway Board, Secretary Post, Secretary Telecom, asking each one of them, verticals of Government of India need to have last mile grievance officers. So if a grievance is pertaining to, say, Guntakal in Andhra Pradesh, and a grievance is filed on the portal, it need not land with the Secretary Post who marks it down to the last level. It can actually land at the last mile officer. So that was what we tried to do. We universalized CPgrams and expanded the number of grievance officers from 650 or so to 107,000 today. Next, please. The impact of these 10-step reforms was quite significant. And grievance redressal, which used to take 120 days in GoI, today has come down to 16 days. Many ministries, even large ministries like Ministry of Home Affairs, are redressing grievances in 8 days. On 17th day, you can expect a call from the feedback call center, unless the matter is involving some judicial issues. Citizen registration has gone up significantly. The number of citizens accessing the portal has gone up very, very high. 3.5 lakhs new registrations have come in last year. We've managed to stabilize the grievances, next please, and introduce new dashboards. And the dashboards provide, for example, if you're looking at CBDT, what are the nature of grievances coming in? The number of citizens who are asking for pension refund, for tax refunds, the number of citizens asking for changes in terms of their PAN card numbers or lost PAN cards. Each of these categories can be easily identified. Further, the intelligent grievance dashboards also enable us number of corruption cases coming in priority sector programs. Schemes like Pradhan Mantri Awas Yojana, what are the citizen voices saying? Where are the corruption cases coming in? Which is the tehsils? Which are the districts? The granularity of data that can be accessed through an intelligent system is quite phenomenal. Next, please. Mobile apps have been created where grievance redressals can be filed. Next, please. And CPgrams today is available in all languages. And a citizen can file in the language and the reply comes back to him in that language. Next, please. The grievance redressal assessment is quite comprehensive. And it assesses all ministries, all states, all union territories on 4 parameters: efficiency, feedback, organizational commitment, and domain. Next, please. The broad thrust is to identify, is the grievance redressed in time? Is the citizen satisfied with the grievance? How many appeals are being filed? Are the GROs opening the portal and searching what work is going on? Or is there cluttering of data and aggregation of data? And we rank, next please, we rank ministries on a monthly basis. And the dashboard also points out into a number of red and green slabs. Wherever the red flags are going up, in case those immediately can be identified where backlogs are seen. Next, please. States have also been ranked, and Rajasthan is one of the very high performing states in terms of grievance redressal. It has a very strong call center. It also has tried to hear every citizen's voice, not only at the state level, but also at the district level. Next, please. We take a huge number of feedbacks. In fact, how is a call center to be operated was quite a learning in itself. The call durations need to be monitored. The call quality is to be monitored. Call audits are conducted. Periodicity of calls, number of times a citizen will be tried. How do you register your call number so that it is not going into spam? And the different languages in which calls are made across India. So to run a very large scale call center, which makes about 10 lakh calls, is a huge effort. And the BSNL call center that we are operating is currently reaching out to every citizen who's filing a grievance on the portal. Next, please. So this is the number of calls, and what we have found was that the citizen satisfaction level has been going up. It used to be around 28%, and today it has reached about 47%, almost a doubling of the number of citizens who are giving positive feedback. As a result, the number of appeals being filed has come down. Next, please. One nation, one portal is a good way. Government has been trying to listen to citizen voices, and chief ministers have held regular meetings for grievance redressal. There is the Swagat portal of Gujarat where the CM sits with the citizen along with the district collector and hears the citizen voice. Rajasthan, we used to have these massive citizen voice grievance redressal camps where the chief minister would spend 4 hours to 5 hours listening to grievances. Multiple grievance portals working in unison, particularly in GoI level, states coming together can have a massive force multiplier effect. And that is what I will show you the numbers. When grievance redressal portals across India function in unison, the result runs into several crores of grievances being redressed. Next, please. We celebrate 20th of every month as the Common Services Centers Grievance Day, in which common service centers across India offer services. Citizens can go there and file grievances in large numbers. Interaction is held with 5 lakh common service centers online, and how grievances are being filed, simplification if there are any challenges coming in, grievance redressal not happening. And CP Grams was also presented as part of the Global AI Summit for adopting artificial intelligence into the systems, wherein which every citizen's voice can be heard and records are available, satisfaction levels are monitored. Next, please. All ATIs have been brought in. The HCM Reaper has been taking up a number of courses so that every grievance officer mapped on the system is given capacity building program of at least 1 day, if not 3 days, in a year or a biannual basis. Next, please. Monthly reports are published. Data is very important. It's important to constantly churn out data and bring out publications. Next, please. The data strategy unit provides you access on each of the priority sector programs. What are the trends? What are the areas in which grievances are flowing? How is the grievance flow? And also provides you, say, for example, PM Kisan. What are the states in which it is working? And what are the states in which the priority scheme is not working? Next, please. I've dealt with 2 large areas so far. One was e-services and the second was effective redressal of public grievances. Let me turn to the third major issue, that is administrative reforms. The second Administrative Reforms Commission recommended that national awards should be instituted for recognizing meritocracy for in-service officers. The Prime Minister's Awards scheme for excellence in public administration caters to that need of recognizing meritocracy in governance. Awards are given to central ministries, state governments, as also district collectors. And the participation is near universal. More than 5,000 nominations come in for 16 award categories and 16 awards. It's highly, highly competitive, and it takes a huge amount of effort, multiple levels of screenings. There are spot study reports, call center feedbacks, screening committees at additional secretary level, expert committees of secretaries, then empowered committee of cabinet secretary before the 16 nominations are selected. Next, please. These are some of the award winners in terms of innovation in governance that were taken up. And the national COVID-19 vaccination program was awarded last year, as also the PM Gati Shakti for the innovations in central government. Next, please. We had the Mission Youth of Jammu and Kashmir and the State Organ and Tissue Transplant Organization of Gujarat as innovations of state. Next, please. And then Operation Parv, these are district level innovations where district collectors come and present it. And you have the New Age Learning Center of Changlang district, which actually used a lot of audiovisual tools for student learning in the remote district of Arunachal Pradesh, which was selected. Next, please. The scheme has undergone multiple restructurings. It used to receive very small number of nominations. Today, it receives more than 5,000 nominations, and priority sector schemes were being taken up. And to ensure nominations, the innovation category was broad-based, and particularly central innovations with state innovations, with district innovations, all could not be treated as one lot. So they needed to be separated, and separate awards are being given. The awards are conferred on Civil Services Day, and the participation in the Civil Services Day 2023 was 26,000 officers. An event held at Vigyan Bhavan and also in hybrid mode, in which almost 250,000 officers participating, was a huge event and success for our own department. Next, please. The replication of these practices is undertaken through a two-pronged way. One is regional conferences are conducted. We had a regional conference in Jaipur a few months ago. The regional conferences are attended by an average of 500 officers. There is also the monthly National Good Governance webinar series. These are much larger in attendance. More than 2,000 to 3,000 officers attend these events. And there is a weekly television discussion on Sansad TV. It is called Abhinav Pahal, where award winners are presented. Next, please. We have the e-governance awards are also taken up, and e-governance awards are more technical in nature as compared to the recognizing meritocracy in the good governance ones under the PM award scheme. Next, please. So these are some of the excellences in emerging technology that were taken up. As I pointed out, Apni Sarkar was introduced by government of Uttarakhand, was awarded because it scaled up very significantly. Swamitwa of the Ministry of Panchayati Raj actually deals with identifying blocks, land parcels across India. Next, please. You have the regional conferences. This was the last held in January in Guwahati. Next, please. And this is the conference in Jaipur that was held. And it tries to showcase and bring national best practices to a regional level, wherein which young officers can learn and share experiences. Next, please. Let me come to the issue of how do you benchmark governance and create indices for governance. We have a World Governance Index, which the World Bank publishes on a biannual basis. We also have, on similar lines, we tried to create a good governance index of India, which assesses states. So 10 sectors, 58 indicators. It required constant interaction with directorates of economics and statistics across the country to ensure that data sets were available on regular timelines. Next, please. The next objective was to map district level data. Many of you who are working in the field of public administration and undertaking research work, data availability is a huge challenge. The District Good Governance Index, as also the Good Governance Index, provides you access to updated data sets. And the objective is to universalize data sets and also to quantify governance models. For example, what is the time taken between an FIR being filed and a charge sheet being presented in court? That was one of the indicators for police governance quality. And what we found was states, for example, which recruited ANMs, states which recruited women police personnel, they showed tremendous increases in specific indicators like judiciary and public safety, as also in health. So this was what was seen. You put in ANMs in place, immediately there is an improvement in terms of your Mission Indradhanush, that is your vaccination parameters. You ensure that women police personnel are in place, immediately there is a reduction in terms of the number of cases that are filed against women atrocities category. Next, please. We also celebrate a Good Governance Week, wherein which the nation's district collectors up to tehsil level participate in a nationwide Prashasan Gaon Ki Aur campaign. This was one that was conducted in 2022, when all the nation's grievance portals functioned in unison for 5 days. And look at the impact, 315 lakh service delivery applications being redressed, 54 lakh grievances being redressed in 5 days' time. It was quite astounding to watch the quantum of collective firepower the portals can bring. Next, please. Let me come to secretariat reforms. And the first thing that strikes you when you enter a government office, in fact, in 2017, when I went to the Board of Revenue, the first thing that struck me was files. 450,000 office records were there in the Board of Revenue. And the Swachhata campaign that was introduced was for institutionalizing Swachhata and to reduce pendency. And the second was the initiative for increasing efficiency in decision making. The second ARC had a lot of recommendations that secretariat should be delayered. Decision making level should be brought down to 4. How is it monitored? For example, it's easy to say, give a prescription, but how do you convert a cat into a rat? It's an impossible challenge. You need to build and monitor systems so that delayering can be effectively implemented. And I'll show you how it has been done. And e-office was one of the game changers that the Central Secretariat has adopted. And a paperless secretariat is the dream of every civil servant. When you enter an office, you'd like to see a decluttered office which does not have so much paper, where it's impossible to find your files. Even the files are not properly structured. The change can be brought about. And I'll share with you. Next, please. The Swachhata campaign has featured in a number of Mann Ki Baat mentions by the Honorable Prime Minister. He has tweeted on it a number of times, and he has taken it up as a personal passion that the Secretariat shall be cleaned up. So the first thing was record management practices. Files needed to be DV'd. Record management practices necessitated timely weeding out of records. And the second one that it necessitated also was records of historical value needed conservation. Next, please. Over the last 3 years, when this campaign was conducted in a very structured manner, what we found was 96 lakh files were weeded out in the Central Secretariat. It's a huge number of files. Files like leave applications, which have 1 year maintenance period, record retention schedules, needed weeding out. We could free up 355 lakh square feet of office space, and old vehicles that were disposed, corrugated iron sheets that were thrown out, lot of laptops, desktops, electronic waste. It generated 1,162 crores of revenue. It is a huge volume. If you just go around the office and see the amount of clutter that you can find, there's a whole lot that could be cleaned up. Next, please. The campaign was held in every office across India. More than 2.5 lakh offices of India participated. Next, please. And several best practices came up. And how do you convert waste to wealth? And there are some that I have put up, like the elephant statue made of plastic waste. There is also this Kabad Se Kalakriti that Ministry of Coal created. Next, please. And enhancement of office spaces. You'll find many cities have cleaned up in a big way. And Ahmedabad, for example, I could not believe how clean the city looked when you visit it. And Indore has undergone a massive transformation too. These are office spaces where gyms were created, where garden cafeteria were created. Next, please. Where spaces were freed up to create recreation centers. Next, please. These are some of the vehicles that were sold off. In fact, in Shastri Bhavan, 28 vehicles were sold off, and there were more than 10 bullet motorcycles which was phased out many years ago, which needed to be sold. The scrap disposal drive was seen in Air Force stations, in army cantonments. Next, please. And you can see one of the army headquarters had tweeted thousands of laptops that needed to be disposed of. In fact, 875 kgs of laptops were disposed of by army headquarters. The best practice, next please. The best practices were widely disseminated, more than 100,000 social media posts, 282 PIB statements, and institutionalizing Swachhata became an all-pervasive push of government. Next, please. Every minister took a round of the secretariat along with secretaries. In fact, you'll find a quote by the Commerce Minister that cash from trash. Here is how India recovered an amount equivalent to 2 Chandrayaan missions. So 1162 crores, 650 crore is the cost of a Chandrayaan mission. So you'll find several senior cabinet ministers have taken rounds, and first thing was to clean up and preserve record and to clean up record that was beyond the schedule. The next step was, next please, to introduce an efficient secretariat. The Central Secretariat Manual of Office Procedure was first written in 1899, way back when Lord Curzon was Viceroy, as to how the Secretariat will function. It created the system of noting, wherein which undersecretaries had to submit comprehensive notes to secretaries, and the quality of their note writing capacity would be measured for your promotions. So the Central Secretariat Manual of Office Procedure is also prevalent in states. The states have their manual of secretariat procedures. And if you see the timelines in which the state manuals of office procedures currently prevail, there are very few states which have a manual of office procedure of 2020 upwards. And to run a secretariat in the 21st century, you need a manual of office procedure that is written in the 21st century. So when we sat with the secretaries and additional chief secretaries, principal secretaries of administrative reforms, the first thing we said was, how do you create a digital secretariat with a manual of office procedure that is written in the 19th century? It's not possible. It has to create space for a proper e-office system, and the Maharashtra Manual of Office Procedure was rewritten from 1961 and published in 2023. So it took, with each state, it has taken significant amount of time, and a lot of work went in. The Central Secretariat Manual of Office Procedure was last written in 2010, and I was told, in fact, Usha Sharma, the former chief secretary, was one of the additional secretaries of DRPJ, and she said it's an impossibly challenging task. It took me 3 months every morning, sit with 9 a.m. to 12 noon, to go through chapter by chapter, line by line, to create a digital secretariat and to merge the manual of electronic office procedure with the manual of office procedure. Then it attracted the attention of the cabinet secretary, who said, we'll take it further ahead and delayer the secretariat. And his objective was that we should have, the files should not move more than 4 levels. There should be timely delegation of administrative powers as also financial powers. The central registration unit should be fully digitized, all receipts moving, and I'll show you the number of receipts that move in the central secretariat, also in state secretariats. You digitize the receipts, and then you digitize the files. And the last was, you introduce a desk officer system, wherein which the undersecretaries are quite empowered. Early in my career, I was posted in the Ministry of External Affairs, and I was amazed the quantum of delegation that was given to undersecretaries in the Ministry of External Affairs. It's not the same when you visit other ministries, where the undersecretary level is not adequately empowered, or even the deputy secretary level. One of the major drives of the rewriting of the Central Secretariat and delegation of administrative powers was to strengthen the system of desk officers in the Central Secretariat. Next, please. E-Office was the first major push. We had less than 300,000 files on the system. A work from anywhere model had to be created, and today the Central Secretariat has 40 lakh files online. There are multiple security features that are introduced in it. It's a protected system. and access is given through virtual private networks, digital signature certificates issued to every section officer in the Central Secretariat, and files move not only within a ministry, but also there is interministerial movement of files that is captured. Next, please. An e-office analytics dashboard has been created, which enables you to understand how many files are physical files, how many files are digital files, how many files are being created, and how are the files, how many files are being closed. Next, please. This is how the Central Secretariat looks today. 2018, 28% of the Secretariat was digital. Today, 92% of the Secretariat is digital. We also have almost 500,000 receipts that are digitized. And there are several ministries that are operating on 100% digital receipts. The number of transaction levels, and I'll show you how they've come down, was 7.98 in 2021. A month-on-month plotting has brought it down to 4.11. And interministerial movement of files through web APIs has been created and is monitored. Next, please. This shows the digitization of files in the Central Secretariat. And you can see a linear increase across the time series, and month on month today more than 350,000, in December 400,000 as of today, and huge volumes of files are being digitized across the system. Next, please. This is an important one. The number of receipts that are being received, and often fresh receipts are not processed. What causes delay? Delay is because the junior levels do not process the receipts. And today you can monitor receipts across the Central Secretariat, how many receipts are moving, how many are pending, ministry-wise pendencies, and the dashboard provides you tremendous access. Next, please. And this is the interministerial movement of files. Often files go to another ministry, never come back. States, the government, largely files going to expenditure, files going to plan, can often disappear into a labyrinth of a bottomless pit of examination. By the time it comes back, a lot of time is lost. We need closer monitoring, identification, where is the file pending? And the departmental head can immediately find out and push a system faster. Next, please. Adoption of digital signature certificate is a big changer, and universalization of DSC was taken up. Next, please. The last part of my presentation, I'll come to an area where we would like to work with the Institute of Development Studies. I also head the National Center for Good Governance for the last 4 years, and the transformation of the National Center for Good Governance has been quite significant. It has been positioned as one of the largest international capacity building organizations in the country. Next, please. Today we are conducting 47 programs for international civil servants across the world, and more than 17 countries have been visiting, civil servants have been visiting the National Center for Good Governance. It has a number of MOUs that are there. Next, please. This is the global footprint of the National Center for Good Governance, and collaborations with Bangladesh, Maldives, Sri Lanka, Cambodia, Singapore, Australia, multi-country programs for Africa, Gambia, and also for Latin America and for the Oceania region is what dominates. And to create a center of excellence for international civil service to propagate India's governance model abroad has been an overarching theme. And thousands of civil servants from abroad, be it the Bangladesh civil service, be it the island services of Sri Lanka, be it the Cambodian civil service, have all been visiting the National Center for Good Governance, creating exchanges, workshops, symposia, capacity building programs. These are areas that we've been pushing extremely hard. Next, please. The outreach, particularly in pandemic period, of a good governance webinar series was quite significant. Good governance practices in a pandemic was what we propagated, and this was the global outreach that we had. Next, please. We also conduct and present India's best practices abroad for select nations or groups of nations, particularly for Southeast Asia. Next, please. And these are the MOUs that we're currently having. international civil servants, Myanmar, Cambodia. Next, please. Sri Lanka, there's also these African multi-country programs, 7 to 10 countries coming in. Next, please. Major thrust areas of governance, Vision India 2047 is a huge attraction. The second one is Aadhaar. Aadhaar and procurement reforms have been the areas where India has performed very strongly. And digital public infrastructure is another area which is also a major push during the G20 facility, G20 deliberations. Next, please. There's also a number of exposure visits that the NCGG does and collaborations across the nation with a number of institutions. Next, please. And it has featured in a number of Prime Minister's statements, international dignitaries' statements, where several foreign ministers, presidents of other countries, prime ministers of other countries have mentioned the institution. Next, please. A number of letters of appreciation from across many agencies. This is one from the Secretary to Prime Minister of Sri Lanka, one from the Foreign Minister of Maldives. Next, please. Next. This is the effort to create a national good governance grid, to bring together institutions which are strong in governance field. I've also tried to reach out to faculties of public administration across the country and to ensure that the discipline of public administration, which brings so much value to governance, is adequately researched into, is adequately presented in national fora as also in international fora. And Rajasthan University has one of the strongest departments of public administration. It can be a great hub for learning as also constant engagement at national level. And right now, we don't have a collaboration as yet in Rajasthan, but we do have it with many IITs and IIMs and across with ASCII, with NIRD, a whole lot of institutions across the nation. Next, please. The reason is more and more countries are wanting to study India's governance models, and the Ministry of External Affairs is willing to push this in a big way, wherein international civil servants can come and train. Collaborations can enable a greater amount of synergy into the way we present the field of public administration, bring constant research and update into the subject and take it forward. For example, comparative public administration is an area, is a very niche area of study, and the number of papers that are coming out in comparative public administration is quite minimal as compared to other areas. A lot of people are willing to study individual programs across the government of India. But comparative public administration, comparing government's models, how does Biden administration model of effective redressal of citizen grievances compare with India's model of effective redressal of citizen grievances? This kind of comparative public administration studies are not adequately forthcoming, and this is one where I'd definitely like to put together a group of very eminent professors. We've shortlisted about 541 professors across India whom we can collaborate with and take the knowledge building process in the field of public administration forward. So next, please. And this will provide a tremendous advantage to the nation. As I said, good governance collaborations are important, and India's governance models, which are extremely strong, not only in terms of the Weberian model of governance that Professor Ramesh Arora taught us way back in 1989, but also to the digital public infrastructure push that we witness currently. It's an extremely strong governance model, and there is much that we have, there is much reason for us to be proud of what we have achieved over the decades. So let me thank you, ma'am, for being a patient audience. Thank you, sir. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, sir. So wonderful to hear you, and grateful thanks to you for inspiring us to join the movement for good governance. There's an old saying, Yatha Raja Tatha Praja, which actually underscores the principle of good governance. And If India has to realize the dream of Viksit Bharat at 2047, use of technology, e-governance, digitization, simplification of service delivery, grievance redressal, they are must. So, with your permission, we can invite questions, sir.
Yes.
So I will
Comments, questions?
comments, brief comments and
Yes, sir. You
specific
can start,
questions
I think.
and
You can guide us on how we take it forward.
Thank you. As always, what you've spoken is very comprehensive and very impressive. And it's quite heartening to see how much effort is going into it. But I'd like to give you a contra view. It's more in the sense of generating a debate. Because as Tenenbaum had said, if everybody says the same thing in a room, then nobody is really saying anything. So I'd like to say something which is contrary, not because I believe what is being done is not right, but I believe something more needs to be done. First part is, of course, governance in terms of the nuts and bolts of it has to be done the manner in which you have said it, and there cannot be any way of saying that this is less important. In fact, it's very, very important. But one of the things that I have experienced is that technology is not the solution. It can never be. Technology cannot be a solution for the very simple reason that it is only a means towards an end. And if the way we have structures of governance, unless they change, technology can only be cosmetic in nature. I'll give you an example. For setting up an MSME in Rajasthan, for instance, we mapped out about 45 clearances and approvals, which is required by the MSME prior to establishment, pre-establishment. So what do we say good governance is? We write down a list of approvals required, and then we assign time to it. 15 days it would be clear, 10 days it would be clear. In fact, if you look at ease of doing business of Niti Aayog 2, it's only in terms of number of days taken to take a decision. Now, what is a decision? I apply and I write my name is Arvind Maharam and my Aadhaar number is this and this and my father's name is this, and then they say your father's surname is missing and we send the application back. I have taken the decision. Nothing is pending with me. Now, this is a problem that you face again and again, and it takes a long time. Now, if you look at an MSME or a startup, it takes clearly, if you get all the approvals of Government of India required, if you add Government of India requirements, there are another 20. So it takes about 8 to 10 months. Now, for a single person starting business, 10 months of surviving without establishment is cost. So fundamentally, what needs to be done? So we in Rajasthan, we did in 2019, we brought a law, which is called MSME Facilitation Act, and we said, no prior approval will be required to set up an MSME under any state law. It's an omnibus act, which spans across all the state acts. No prior approval is required, and you can establish your business, and for 5 years you can run the business before you go for compliances. No inspector can come to you, etc. About 20,000 MSMEs have registered on it. And it actually is working, but it is not because of number of days, etc. We say you just don't have to go to the government. Now, this is a kind of a fundamental change we require in many, many places. Passport application, now you can do digitally. You can apply digitally and all kind of things happen. It goes for police report. Do we know what report the police is supposed to give to us? Right? There is no SOP. So the police you will have to go to the police. Perhaps you may have to give some speed money to get it going, because the police can go to your neighbor's place, it can report and say, I went and talked to 3 neighbors and they said he's a quarrelsome person and therefore he should not be given a passport. So you reject it, you have taken the decision. So technology in itself is not enough. There is something plus to it, and which that plus I don't see much of thinking going into that plus. There is also another issue of humanizing technology. And this we see not only in government, but you see anywhere. You look any customer care service, you will go there, you will press 9 options, ninth option. Now you cannot get to it, speak to anybody because the options that are given are not the options that you need redress of. So you will keep hunting here and there, trying to find somebody to speak to, but you can't because that human face is not there. Everything has been digitized, and we say now everything is perfect because you don't need, you don't need to go anywhere. You can get all the facility. Humanizing technology is a very big thing, and we have not been able to reach there. So it doesn't really help in people. Third is reducing digital inequality. And during COVID, we saw this in a big way. Look at all the schools, government schools, municipal schools, etc. In the rural areas, electricity comes for 5 hours. So there's no question of Wi-Fi working all the time. GST. Uploading your GST form is a nightmare if you are, say 60 kilometers away from Jaipur. Becomes impossible. It's digitized. We have made everything technology driven, but does it really work? Even if I have to get my Aadhaar card generated or change of address, etc., I need an agent to do it because it's impossible for me to do it. The portal will not work. You do halfway, it will stop working. So all the things that we are looking at in digitization, we need to also look at the person who's going to use on the other side of it. Now, one other thing which I think you can do in the position that you're sitting in a big way is breaking down the silos between the government departments. Problem here is, and which also takes me to the other part, because quickly I should finish this and not occupy all the time that everybody needs to do. But the other part that needs to also be done is in terms of integration of data. If I want to construct, the PWD is designing a road, have no data available for the water aquifer which is underground. So whether the road is going to pollute the water aquifer, which is going to deteriorate the drinking water, that kind of talking of data is not there at all. So there's a huge amount of data collected by different departments, but they don't talk to each other. So is there a way of integrating that data in a manner that it will speak? It is also true for even government portals. Bhavishya.in, nic.in, which is part of what you look at as pensions. The pensioner's card that I have received has my secretary to Government of India's residential address, because when I retired, I was living there. I have not been able to change it in the last 9 years because it asks for so much of information. No. I am just saying to you that it is a difficult part. See, digitization is difficult. When I go to the ministry which issued the card to me, they said, sir, everything is online. You have to go to the portal and do it. Now, portal asks me 20 kind of information which I don't have. So there's no way I can change it. So I'm just saying that it is difficult in that sense. And there is a need for data to talk. For instance, if I give my Aadhaar number, all the data should be collected from all the databases, and every time I should not have to write my father's name and grandfather's name and everything while I'm filing something, because you should pull. In US, for instance, if you have, correct me if I'm wrong, what is it called? The social security number. And with that, you can get anything. I mean, all the data is into that, and you can get all the services. Finally, I would say last thing for you, which is local level administration. Now, the problem is structural issue, like you said just now, in terms of writing secretariat manuals. We have now a huge number of primary schools, A&Ms, JEs in the villages and so on and so forth. But none of the, even the Government of India schemes don't factor in where they will live. So the school you can have, now you have PM Shri schools. You know, I mean, everything is now PM driven. So there's the PM Shri school. Now this PM Shri school doesn't have a teacher going into that school because the bus that goes to the village reaches at 12 because there's only one bus going to that village and leaves, I mean, when it's returning from its round, it leaves at 2 o'clock. So the teacher has only between 12 and 2 to be there because this poor woman who's been recruited cannot find a place to live in the village because villages don't have rental housing. So there is this whole, we have now never thought of it in this way as to how do the A&Ms live, how do the teachers live, how do the JEs live. I think this is very much part of good governance because if I have the school and it has all the digital education systems there and everything else, but the teacher does not reach because the poor thing doesn't have a place to stay there, then it really doesn't work. So my point is that it requires a little more comprehensive thinking on what good governance should be instead of just looking at digitization of everything because that is important but not enough. I'm sorry I took a lot of time, but.
Well, I won't like to comment on anything. It's absolutely fascinating, enthralling. And I learn every day through your writing. So great.
Great, thank you. Yes, please. Kindly introduce yourselves.
Yeah, thank you for a very comprehensive and illuminating presentation, Mr. Srinivas. I'm Sanjay. I used to teach political science in Udaipur, so I live in Udaipur. And I'll give you, continuing from what Dr. Mayara was saying, there's an electric pole next to my house in Udaipur. It's not working for last 4 months. I've been repeatedly complaining on Jan Sampark. Nothing has happened. Yesterday, I was traveling from Udaipur to Jaipur in my vehicle. I had a chauffeur who was driving the car, and he oversped. It was about 113 kilometers, and immediately I got a challan from the Vahan app on my mobile. And I'm supposed to pay 1,000 rupees within 15 days or 14 days, whatever. The bill goes to Dr. Katuria because he invited me here. And the point which I'm trying to make here, good governance is all fine. Whatever you have done, the ministry is trying to do. I think an average citizen in India looks forward to those kind of services. But I think what has happened at the same time is that increasingly there is a gap between good governance and humane or democratic governance. I've been involved with a number of studies based at CSDS, which has focused on police reforms, which has focused on the status of democracy. And over the years, the 3-4 rounds of status of democracy in South Asia, what we have done, increasingly we have come to understand that as far as the entire South Asian subcontinent is concerned, the graph of democracy is coming down. So maybe we are excelling as far as good governance is concerned, whatever we have described so far. But the actual delivery of services to the people and people's faith in the overall governmental system or overall democratic system, the entire theory of faith in the government system is coming down. If you look at the recent, VDAM report, which is done by an institute in Sweden, Gothenburg, again, it says that India is fast going towards a deficit democracy. Now, what is the basic essence of democracy? The basic essence of democracy is that the basic, services should be made available to the people. In all our surveys relating to voting behavior, the first thing which emerges in all the studies is that unemployment is the basic issue. My simple question to you would be, how can we introduce technology in such a way that the gap between good governance and humane governance is patched up as fast as possible? Thank you.
Take one more.
Sir,
Please,
Sir.
introduce yourself.
Professor, myself, Dr. Hemant from Jaipur. Sir, my question is that one point you raised about outreach activity that ministers and district collectors going to the public for their problem solutions. So, do we have any mechanism to ensure that all the targeted beneficiaries are actually coming, because it is a huge state and remote areas we have. So, do we have a mechanism that targeted beneficiaries are actually coming to the point where solutions are provided? And one more second question, if you can take, sir, is that means nowadays we are out activities and initiatives are there, but IT era knocked us before 21st century, and even after 25 years, is it so that we are experiencing this particular good changes, e-governance, so late? I think I'm clear, sir.
Sir.
So take
Sir,
three. Let me respond to three. फिर मैं भूल जाऊंगा इसमें.
Sir, बाद में.
Yes. Sir, in India, digital literacy is the very big issue. How can solve the e-governance initiatives?
So let me respond to the contrarian views that you have put forward. Technology is not the solution. From technology is the solution to technology is not the solution. So I think in 21st century governance, a physical system of governing is extremely difficult, and particularly I find as chairman, in fact, my experience as chairman board of revenue was quite illuminating, and that's the same thing I found as deputy director administration at AIMS. And what I found was that the citizen journey in a physical system was extraordinarily difficult, and I don't know how many of you stood in a line to get a train ticket in a physical system. It used to take many hours to get an airline ticket. And then we come, AIMS used to have from 1 o'clock in the morning, patients would be standing in line for that 10 minutes with the doctor. And there was a sea of humanity. I would go to work around 7:30, 7:45, and there would be a sea of humanity waiting to just see one doctor for 10 minutes. And they would wait 7 hours to get into the patient registration, then they had to get again into the clinician's registration and get in. And then if the clinician prescribed further tests, it had to go to another registration counter and get himself registered. And if admission was recommended, then it would take him a huge amount of time. Also, it was difficult to understand, even if the patient came back 3 times or 4 times, as to how patient records could be handled, because there was no consistent data availability was not there. We had an e-hospital system, but it was not optimized. It was not operationalized. The first time when we put in this portal of online registration and we said you come to a clinician with online registration, the patients went berserk. There was tremendous pushback. In fact, I found myself being jostled, and I've documented it for Professor Ramesh Arora also, as to how the digitization of AIMS helps streamline and save a sinking Titanic. One of the largest public hospitals of India. And today when I see it replicated across 700 hospitals, I find that technology perhaps was the right step forward. So patient records were digitized. You need not go to a hospital, but you could get your OPD slip without standing in a line in hospital. The hospital started treating double or triple the number of patients that they were handling. I went to Board of Revenue and I found that I could not find how many SDOs were sitting in courts. Rajasthan has more number of SDOs than Uttar Pradesh, 344 subdivisional officers in the state. Sir, you would recall in the 80s we had 18 districts and 80 SDOs. 18 collectors and 80 SDOs. That went up to 25 and then 33 to much larger number today. So we had in 2017 the highest number of SDOs in the country. 344. We also had the highest number of casework in the country. 7.98 lakh court cases were lying in revenue courts of Rajasthan. It was difficult to identify why cases were not moving, who were the SDOs who were sitting in courts, not sitting in courts, because the monthly gradation that the Board of Revenue was issuing, everybody got an A in a system where physical system made it very difficult to understand. So when I went at digitization, I found that also the young advocates had very few cases. The case-wise, who were the advocates who were dominating? And we found senior advocates had a majority number of cases. The young professionals didn't have adequate numbers. And also the cases were not moving forward. That is, if a court was convened, the case has to move forward. If the bar is willing, then the bench must give time. But a physical system made it very difficult to monitor progress in a constructive way. And when we digitized the Board of Revenue, we suddenly found the board could redress at that point of time 1,250 cases. It went up from 450 cases per month to 1,250 cases. The quality of redressal is something which you had highlighted. I'll come to that also, sir. But so these were two experiences that I had from 2014 when Digital India was launched. The AIMS was digitized. Prime Minister mentioned it from the ramparts of Red Fort also, that he has digitized AIMS and it would be replicated. And then came the Board of Revenue experience, which we digitized. Summons were digitized, written statements, number of cases in arguments, judgments. After you hear arguments, the timelines between writing a judgment. This was monitored. The members who were sitting in court or not sitting in court. Board of Revenue in Ajmer was a distant, far-off place. Members don't come, or members would like to do courts in Jaipur. And it needed a comprehensive database to modernize. And that number of files, 450,000 files, you sit on a bench in a Board of Revenue, 170 files a day. There's no place up to the last one files are there where you have to keep going and signing files. So it was, I thought there was no other way except to, there was simply no way a physical system, it tested human endeavor and human capacity, even for the strongest of administrators, the most committed individual, to take that institution forward. This kind of technological obsolescence of an institution was very difficult to comprehend in 21st century, sir. I agree that there is a humane nature of technology that needs to be brought in, sir. And I'll quote two very senior people. Dr. Jitan Singh has been Minister of State in the PMO, handling personnel for a long time. And he always gives this, that the surgery is successful but the patient is dead. He himself, being an Amesonian, always comes with these medical analogies. And said that we need to provide quality redressal. And monitoring of quality is very important. The second one, Mr. Devendra Fadnavis, in one of the regional conferences said the same thing that you told me. Technology is very good, but behind every portal there are so many locks. How do you simplify the use of portals? Please simplify the use of portals. It is impossible to reach an individual's voice when you make a phone call. Even you try 112 or 100, try to get a police line. It takes you a very long time to get to a police constable on the line. Humanizing technology is a big issue, sir, and this has been an area of focus as to how do you hear a citizen's voice better in a technology platform. And there are no easy answers. The first thing was the physical system was so dilapidated that it needed a technology solution. The technology solution has thrown up new challenges in that there is an internet rich and an internet poor. I found members on the Board of Revenue arguing fiercely with me that the digital divide will be enhanced by digitizing the institution. As you rightly pointed out, 60 kilometers out of Jaipur, very difficult to upload a form on GST. We found internet speeds come down to 8 Mbps. You can have a Jaipur internet speed of 100 or 120 Mbps, but you move out to Ajmer, you'll find the speed slows down. All the time it is buffering. You cannot get to the site. It is so difficult without adequate internet speeds. And also the questions that are being asked are quite complex. For example, as you rightly said, Bhavishya, a portal which we administer, and it is adjudicated as India's third best portal in NASDAQ, third best portal. And if our portal, we are receiving about 10,000 pensioners filing something or the other on our Bhavishya portal, definitely there are improvements that are possible and that should be undertaken up. And this NASDAQ 2024, the results are Bhavishya has gone up one step more to second rank, and CBDT is at first. So the E-Nivaran stands at first. Integration of data is a good question, sir. The PM Gati Shakti is the only answer that is there right now for multiple delayering and layerings and identifying multiple departments. R.K. Lakshman used to have this famous cartoon wherein which he would show digging by PWD on one level, digging by waterworks on the second level, digging by telecom on the third level, then digging by electricity department, and then the first worker would say, oh, I am still digging at the first level, there are 3 more levels below me. So Gati Shakti provides you that kind of delayering and multiple overlaying. I have not studied Gati Shakti very closely, sir, although it got a PM award last year. I heard the presentation briefly and 2-3 meetings. The logistics policy and National Gati Shakti, PM Gati Shakti model are what are being cited as the answers to the big challenges that we face in terms of data integration. Local administration, sir, in fact, the second ARC reports we were examining, out of the 472 recommendations that are under implementation still, 150 are with district and local administration, 150 recommendations of district and local administration. And many of the issues that you flagged continue to feature there. I quite enjoyed what Professor Sanjay said on Vahan app penalty. I'm sure, I hope he'll take over. Otherwise, you give us the bill and we'll take over your bill. We will put your bill for it. So then you pay the bill. Then you pay the bill. But because technology can't go so wrong, you know. It can't go so wrong. It may be difficult to access, but it can't go so wrong. So good governance to humane governance, I did point out. I find often a lot of senior pensioners coming up and saying there are challenges, it needs simplification. As I said, Mr. Arun Kumar told me that there is no replacement to a night halt. Whatever you may do in an online platform, there's simply no replacement to a genuine handshake where you are physically present in the field. And the last question that you raised in terms of outreach, Rajasthan is the largest state in the Indian Union and also has the largest bureaucracy, very large bureaucracy, 344 SDOs, very large, so many district collectors. And the norm used to be 4 night halts per SDO since independence, since 1947. When you actually go down and see how many are doing 4 night halts, you'll find very few are doing 4 night halts. Very few are doing, and collectors are not doing night halts. You'll find SDOs are not doing night halts. Tehsildars don't do night halts. Patwaris don't stay in headquarters. That's what causes the lack of outreach. And one of the major changes that this big administrative setup is being necessary is because the absence of field level presence. So that necessitated creation of a larger bureaucracy so that we can provide those services at the field level. Otherwise, 340 SDOs for Rajasthan is inconceivable. I used to have 5 tehsils, Nimbaheda, Choti Sadri, Badi Sadri, Dungla and Bhadesar, 5 tehsils. Today there are 5 subdivisions there. Whereas Bhilwada used to have 5 tehsils and now there are 2 districts in those tehsils. So in that one subdivision. So the proliferation of administrative units has been there, necessitated because the field level presence was not adequately being felt. Sir, I hope I've answered to some extent. But sir, personally, I felt that adoption of technology, and I was not a student of public administration. I was an MTech in chemical engineering who came in. And I found it very difficult to understand why government wanted an IMF returned official with so much experience across sectors to serve in administrative reforms, in personal administration. And I did top public administration in the civil services, although I didn't study that subject. And I found I could bring as an engineer several technology parameters into governance. And particularly this data transparency was something that I greatly enjoyed. Formulating indices, categorizing and identifying where change is happening. So personally, I felt the adoption of technology brought in considerable transparency into a very opaque system. So it was a very opaque system. It was a system that was looking dilapidated, and it required some kind of a major transformational governance push. And that was what made us really go after. In fact, Priska has been with me for 6 years now. And we recall when CP Grams was there, we used to go to secretaries' offices and sit with them and tell them that you have to do this. 120 days, a citizen files a grievance, like you filed about your swimming pool, nothing happens. 120 days, there's no response. It was very long. Today, at least in 16 days, whether it is closed properly or improperly, we get a response. And if it is closed improperly, there is an appeal provision that is there. So I thought my own personal view was technology adoption seems to be the right way forward. Maybe the humane touch and some other concerns that have emerged will need to be addressed in the coming years. Any more questions? Yes, yes, yes.
Just because you did not, you started with cybersecurity, but you did not mention anything about that.
Yes, yes.
Because
Let me
before
finish.
my
I'll
problem
respond
is
to
solved,
I'll respond.
the digital marketing people, they come to know first and they start calling me for any of this problem.
Yes,
Solved. Yeah, please,
I
please.
will cover that. That's a very important subject. And let me come to this issue with regard to cybersecurity and resilience. You'll often find your Facebook accounts are hacked. Many of you would have seen it. Your Facebook accounts are very easily hacked. And if you don't take adequate security, your friend list is public and somebody can send multiple messages to your friends.
Even WhatsApp.
Yes. When you have 40 lakh files online in a digital platform, the quantum of security that you need is enormous. So government has set up systems like Certain, which are responsible for certifying the cybersecurity of a digital platform. And the certification of the by Certain necessitates classification of a system as a protected system. It prescribes the number of cybersecurity checks that will have to be undergone, the periodicity with which it is undergone, the multi-factor authentication that is required. For example, if you try to log into an NIC email ID, does anybody have an NIC email ID? It's not easy to log into the NIC email ID. I have an NIC email ID, and I'll show you. You have to go through what is called a kavach, NIC kavach. So it just can't be that I put in a login ID and a password and I get to my email. In a government system, you can't get to it. It requires facial recognition and an authentication of a unique number that comes on your mail ID, on your mobile. So that is what is required. The same way on the CPGram portal, we've tried to introduce citizen identification. So a citizen has to identify himself from where he's filing, give his mobile number, give his email ID. Citizen identification, as what Mr. Maharam pointed out, is very important. Aadhaar seeding of portals has been taken up as a mandatory feature across many portals, wherein social security disbursements are being taken up. But government has made significant efforts for cybersecurity. And if you see NASDA reports, one of the strong areas where India's portals perform well has been in terms of data privacy and cybersecurity. The areas where improvements are needed are content availability, periodicity of updation of data, accessibility, status request tracking. These we find the scope of improvement is much higher. So, sir, I was answering his question with regard to Aadhaar seeding onto portals. And I did point out that citizen identification on portals is an important feature. Also, multi-factor authentication has become important because the cybersecurity risks are very high, particularly this virtual private networks. When you have a system wherein which 400,000 officials have access to files, the permissibility of a VPN network is very carefully scrutinized, and it is given after multiple layers of approvals. I hope that answers it.
For instance, you know, the files getting lost. We have even seen defense ministry files in the recent times having been lost, crucial files being lost. So in the digital space, how robust is the system where the files cannot be lost? I'm not even saying, I'm saying, I mean, if somebody wishes them to be lost, how difficult it is for the system to be able to do that. In physical files, there is still a little possibility that you may find a fragment here or a fragment there. Some letter would have been sent to somebody, another file, there would be a linkage and so on. But in digital form, how much safe will it be?
It's a very important question, sir. In fact, I have resisted all requests that reading of files should be introduced in digital format. We've said there is no reading of files on the e-office system. A file, once it is created, can be closed if it completes the record retention schedule. Record retention schedules have been thoroughly reworked so that the closure of files is a seamless procedure, but the closed files are maintained on the cloud network. So what exactly it happens is, even if it is a category C file, it simply does not go away. It is still available. Category B and category A files, which are of permanent nature, which have to be in the permanent repository, either of the ministry or with the National Archives after the record retention schedule, those continue to be retained. In fact, the A category files have also to be microfilmed in the earlier one. In the current one also, you need to digitize those files and keep it in permanent record. There's been tremendous pressure that category C files at least should be allowed to be weeded out because it is occupying tremendous amount of cloud space. NIC particularly has been requesting, because creation of cloud space is a very expensive proposition. E-Office currently has not allowed any weeding of files. So all our files that were created as an e-file remain an e-file. The challenge that is coming up is that, as I showed you, this linear increase in files that has been there, while the line looks very streamlined, it has been a disorderly increase in some ministries, and that multiple files have been opened up. All you need is just a scanner and you put an FR and start a new file, and a file number comes in. So the cross-linking of files, the files which have interministerial value, cross-linking of those files, particularly large files with huge institutional memory, there are those where the e-office system still faces a lot of challenge. And that is one area we're looking at as to how do you cross-link files. That is, you need 3-4 volumes of files which need to be linked before a decision is taken. Those are areas. Defense Ministry, sir, is not on e-office. It is a totally secure, totally on a physical manner. Defense Cabinet Secretariat, PMO, these are off the office system.
If you allow, we can take more questions on the lunch time. Because there should not be any obstruction for the delicious lunch.
She has one question. I think we should go.
So it would be the last.
Yeah, आप कुछ बोले नहीं इसमें तो.
नहीं, मैं spoke ही नहीं. आपने इतना सब बता दिया sir detail. I don't think there is any need of paraphrasing what has already been said.
Okay.
I think when I was a student, so I read that book, From Government to Governments. It also pointed out lots of things. I also find out still prevalent that thing in your projects. I think the government, because it's second data, I'm not from government's background, I'm from the public background. All the time, government is backed from the political parties. Political parties has the ideologies and mentality. The last time, when in the Rajasthan, you also pointed out Abhilwara, I worked there. Narega में जो लोग हमारे काम किए, उनको NFSA के तहत जुड़ना था, वो सेंट्रली उनको जुड़ा ही। It's a captured by the, I'm using that word, I'm sorry for that. But it is purely.
What is the question? Come to the question.
The federalism, each and everything in their hands. How that government that is elected by that state government, state people will work. NFS is not working. And similarly, the same thing, you are putting the government, the beginning of RTI is going up. How we can, the governance means for welfare, social security, and I think, again, I'm not going into that detail. Absolutely, we think again, and we read again the government to government. Thank you. I think
There's no question.
See,
It's a comment. I take your comment.
I'm not from academic background, so I cannot go into that detail.
ठीक.
That I have. Thank you.
अच्छा है, नहीं आइडियाज अच्छा संस्था है जहाँ पर बहुत मंथन होता था इसमें, खास करके राइट टू इंफॉर्मेशन के ऊपर बहुत मंथन होता था इसमें, एंड कई वर्कशॉप सिंपोजिया कई हुए हैं यहाँ पर। ये अच्छा संस्था पे आपने ये सवाल उठाया है। कथुरिया जी इसका जवाब देंगे, एक वर्कशॉप कराएंगे आपके साथ अलग। थैंक यू। राइट,
Thank you very much, sir. So we have reached the last leg of the program, and I extend hearty welcome for this enlightening lecture. Actually, there was no scope for me to comment on it. It was realistic.
Okay, now I invite Dr. Ramesh Arora to kindly distribute Professor M.V. Mathur contribution books to the panel. Thank you so much, sir. I would like to request Professor Alpana Kateja to present a memento to Srinivas sir. Srinivas sir. I request Professor Vinish Kathuria to present a memento to Professor Kateja. I invite Dr. Motilal Mahamalik to present a memento to Miss Chandni ma'am. I request Dr. Varinder Jain to present a memento to Dr. Ramesh Arora. I request Professor Vinish Kathuria to present a memento to Professor Arvind Nayaram. Thank you so much. Now I request you all for the lunch. Lunch has been arranged in the garden area. We will assemble back for the technical sessions. Thank you, everyone.